It was our 3rd wedding anniversary, and my CEO wife finally decided to take a break from work to fly with me to Paris. Just as we loaded our luggage into the car heading for the airport, her assistant called, his tone anxious. He said there was an urgent merger case, and she needed to return to the company immediately to take charge. Baby, something huge just happened at work. You go to Paris first. I'll make it up to you once I'm done with this project, she said, kissing my forehead before I could respond. Then she switched cars and disappeared down the road. Watching her car fade into the distance, I slowly curled my lips into a cold smile. As the company's largest shareholder, how could I not know about any so-called emergency merger? Main text. Sir, should we still go to the airport? The driver asked. Turn around. Go to MT Tower, I said coldly. I wanted to see what Lydia was really up to. The moment I arrived at the company entrance, the receptionist stopped me. President Liu is busy. No one without an appointment is allowed in. I didn't bother arguing. I pulled out my phone and called Lydia. No one answered. Not once. Not twice. Several times. Then, the giant LED screen in the lobby lit up, showing a live broadcast of a grand banquet in the top floor hall. Lydia stood at the center of the crowd, holding a luxurious watch worth a fortune, personally putting it on the wrist of a handsome young man beside her. Happy birthday to our Oliver, the most beloved prince of Liu Group. Lydia's voice was soft and sweet through the speakers. The crowd erupted into thunderous applause and laughter. The camera zoomed in. I clearly saw Oliver lean down and quickly kiss Lydia on the cheek. She didn't reject him. She even covered her face shyly, her gestures intimate and natural. The people around started teasing. Oh, President Liu's playing favorites again. None of us get that kind of treatment. Of course not. He's the young master of the Sun family, her favorite. How could the rest of us compare? Oliver Sun, make a wish. Wish that you and President Liu will soon become a real couple. Oliver Sun, the heir of the Sun family. He'd only been an intern at the company for 3 months, yet somehow he'd become the most special person around Lydia. So this urgent merger was nothing more than his birthday party. I took a deep breath, swallowing down the bitter taste in my throat. Tell Lydia, I said to the receptionist, that her husband is waiting downstairs. She sneered. Sir, please don't joke around. President Liu's fiancé, Mr. Sun, is upstairs hosting his birthday party right now. If you want to cause trouble, maybe pick another day. I ignored her and headed for the elevator. Just then, the elevator doors chimed open. A group of people walked out, surrounding Oliver like he was a proud peacock. And who's this shameless man coming to bother my sweetheart again? You must be Justin, he sneered, jabbing a finger close to my face. Lydia mentioned you once, said you were some farm laborer her mom found back in her hometown. Laughter exploded around us. Oh my God, a kept man, dressed like that, and he dares show up at Liu Group to see President Liu. Talk about a toad dreaming of swan meat. Doesn't he even look in the mirror to see if he's worthy? Oliver covered his mouth, laughing so hard he nearly bent over. Don't get me wrong, he said mockingly. Lydia's just kind-hearted. She only helped you out sometimes because she felt sorry for you, living all alone in the countryside. But she and I are already engaged, our wedding's next month. So please, stop dreaming about something that'll never happen. I stared at him coldly, reached into my bag, and pulled out a small red booklet. I unfolded it in front of his eyes. Mr. Sun, take a good look. This is our marriage certificate. Lydia and I got married 3 years ago. Legally speaking, I'm her husband. The smile on Oliver's face froze. He snatched the certificate from my hand, glanced at it, and burst into scornful laughter. Fake, he sneered, hurling the certificate to the ground. You forged a marriage certificate just to climb up to Lydia. Pathetic. Laughter echoed around the lobby, sharper and louder this time. I bent down to pick it up, but Oliver suddenly grabbed a cup of hot coffee from the reception desk and splashed it across my arm and chest. The scalding liquid seeped through my clothes instantly, burning my skin. Ah, I gasped in pain. Strip him, Oliver shouted shrilly. Let's see what kind of shameless man dares to show his face here. Maybe he's hiding something disgusting under those cheap clothes. 2 bodyguards stepped forward, reaching for my shirt. Just then, a cold voice cut through the chaos. Stop. Lydia's heels clicked sharply against the marble floor as she strode into view. When she saw me standing there, my arm blistered red, my shirt soaked with coffee. A flicker of guilt flashed in her eyes, but it was gone as quickly as it came, replaced by anger and humiliation. She didn't even glance at me again. Instead, she rushed to Oliver's side and anxiously touched his shoulder. Oliver, are you okay? Did he scare you? Oliver immediately put on a wounded expression and started whining. Lydia, that crazy man's terrifying. He came waving a fake marriage certificate and tried to attack me. I only spilled the coffee by accident. Lydia comforted him softly, but when her gaze turned to me, it was colder than ice. Justin, have you made enough of a scene? The surrounding employees and guests began to whisper and snicker. So he's one of those social climbers, a gold-digging man trying to marry up. Poor President Liu, having to deal with a man like that. I picked up the marriage certificate from the floor, my hands trembling with anger. Lydia, I demanded, my voice quivering. Is this certificate real or not? Her eyes landed on the red booklet. Her expression turned stormy. After a few seconds of silence, she snatched it from my hands and, before everyone present, tore it into pieces. The red paper fragments fluttered down like ashes. I warned you not to cross the line, she said coldly, her voice dripping with disgust. You were just someone my mother forced into my life, a man who's been clinging to me since childhood. I tolerated you out of pity, but you've gone too far, forging documents and causing chaos in my company. Then, before everyone's eyes, she turned and announced loudly, I, Lydia Liu, have only one fiancé, and that's Oliver Sunday. Standing behind Lydia, Oliver gave me a smug, triumphant smile, the look of a man who believed he'd won everything. Lydia glanced at me one last time. Still not embarrassed enough? Get out of here before you make an even bigger fool of yourself. 2 security guards stepped forward, motioning toward the exit with rigid politeness. Sir, please leave immediately, one of them said sternly. I stood frozen in place, feeling like a clown stripped bare before the world, humiliated, exposed, and utterly discarded. When Lydia came home later that night, I had already packed my things. She reeked of alcohol, mixed with the nauseating cologne Oliver always wore. The moment she saw the suitcases in the living room, her brows knitted tightly. Justin, what are you sulking about this time? She snapped, her tone full of irritation. For what happened this afternoon, I told you, Oliver didn't mean it. Why can't you be more forgiving? I almost laughed at her words. Forgiving? She continued, voice dripping with impatience. Look, I might have gone a bit far today, but you pushed me to it. And haven't I told you? My career's at its peak right now. I can't let anyone know I'm married. That thing with Oliver is just for show. Once the stock price rises a bit more, I'll announce that the engagement's off. I raised my head and looked at her calmly. Lydia, let's end this. She froze for half a second, then burst out laughing like she'd just heard the most ridiculous joke in the world. Divorce? Oh, you're using that trick again. Her eyes narrowed with disdain. Let me tell you, don't mistake my tolerance for weakness. I'm not in the mood to entertain your tantrums tonight. Without even glancing at me again, she turned and walked straight into the bathroom. The next morning, Lydia left for work as if nothing had happened. She probably thought this was just another one of my silent protests, that I'd swallow the bitterness like always and return to being her obedient house husband. At noon, a delivery arrived. I opened it to find a bottle of men's cologne inside. A note was tucked next to it, written in Lydia's bold, elegant handwriting. Baby, don't be mad anymore. Think of this as compensation for missing Paris. Love, Lydia. I sighed and picked up my phone just as a breaking entertainment headline flashed across the screen. Liu Group CEO Lydia Liu and her close companion spotted choosing a luxury sports car late at night, wedding bells soon. In the photo, Lydia was smiling sweetly as she leaned over to fasten Oliver's seatbelt. Their posture was intimate, their faces glowing with affection. I glanced back at the cologne bottle in my hand, clearly a free promotional gift. What a pathetic kind of compensation. So that was her so-called apology, something she'd picked up while flirting with another man. I could almost imagine Oliver's fake magnanimity as he said, just give him the freebie, otherwise, that crazy man will start bothering you again. 3 years of marriage, 3 years of devotion. All of it, nothing but a complete, humiliating joke. Lydia called. Did you get the gift? Do you like it? Her tone carried a hint of pride, as if she were flaunting her generosity and thoughtfulness. The cheap, pungent scent of the cologne stung my nose, draining away the last trace of warmth in my heart. I love it, I said, my voice as calm and lifeless as still water. Moments later, Lydia's mother called. Justin, I heard you're fighting with Lydia again. What's wrong with you? Can't you act like an adult? Lydia's working so hard to build her career, and instead of supporting her, you're causing trouble at her company. Mr. Sun is such a decent, capable young man, he's helped her so much, and you go picking fights with him. She didn't even pause for breath before continuing. You've been married to Lydia for 3 years, and she still hasn't had a child. Now you're even showing her attitude. Let me tell you, the Liu family doesn't need a useless son-in-law living off our name. Keep this up, and you can get out of our house. She hung up after delivering her tirade. On the TV, entertainment news flashed across the screen again, Lydia and Oliver, smiling sweetly. Headlines declaring their upcoming happiness. 3 years of marriage, 3 years of sacrifice, all a cruel farce. If that's how it is, Lydia, then I don't want you anymore. I dialed a number I knew by heart. The call connected almost instantly. A composed, steady female voice came through. Chairman, you've finally reached out. Zoe, my father's most trusted aide, and the sole manager of the vast assets under my name. 3 years ago, to marry Lydia, I had given up everything, transferred all my holdings to Zoe, living incognito as an ordinary husband with nothing to his name. I had foolishly believed Lydia loved me. Justin, The man, not the heir to a global investment empire. Now, I knew how wrong I'd been. I want the Lu Group stock price halved within 3 days. I said flatly. Cut off their funding channels completely. Yes, young master. Zoe replied without hesitation or questions. There's more. She added, about what you asked me to look into. Lydia's mother has been secretly in contact with the Sun family. She's never approved of your background. Thought you weren't good enough for her daughter. So, 2 years ago, she began arranging meetings between Lydia and her best friend's son, Oliver. Lydia was aware of this and agreed to it. I closed my eyes. Of course, she hadn't been ignorant, she'd been compliant. She'd enjoyed the attention, the luxury, the dual affection, my devotion on one side, and the Sun family's prestige on the other. She also has a private offshore account, I said evenly. In the past 3 years, she's been quietly saving money there. The total sum is in the 9-figure range. I want you to trace the transactions and find out what she's done with it. Yes, Chairman Justin. You'll have the full report within 12 hours. I ended the call and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the glittering city beneath me. Lydia, you always wanted to climb higher, didn't you? Then I'll be the one to drag you down from the clouds, with my own hands. By the next morning, financial news was set ablaze by a bombshell about Lu Group. Unknown capital maliciously shorts Lu Group, stock plunges 30% within the first hour of trading. Several core partners suddenly pull funding, Lu Group's cash flow is on the brink. Rumor, Lu Group CEO Lydia siphoned company funds, under internal investigation. I leisurely ate my breakfast while scrolling through these headlines, feeling an indescribable satisfaction. Within half an hour Lydia's phone rang dozens of times. I didn't answer a single one and, annoyed, blocked her number altogether. Before long, an unfamiliar number called. I picked up. It was Oliver. His voice sharp and furious. Justin, you bastard. Is this your doing? Lydia's company is in trouble. Are you taking revenge on her? I chuckled lightly. Mr. Sun, you can eat carelessly, but you can't speak recklessly. I'm just a powerless, poor man. How would I have the ability to shake the mighty Lu Group? Stop playing dumb. Who else but you could be so vicious, sneaking into Lydia's home and stealing company secrets? He spat. I calmly cut a fried egg on my plate. Compared to you, Mr. Sun, I think you have more pressing concerns. I hear your birthday banquet's venue, catering, and that ultra-luxury sports car haven't been paid for yet. President Lu's personal accounts are likely frozen right now. A shriek, then a string of furious curses came from the other end. I was bored of listening and hung up. At noon, Zoe reported with her usual efficiency. Young master, everything's been verified. Lydia's offshore account flows mainly to 3 places. First, purchases for Oliver, luxury cars and goods, totaling about 80 million yen. Second, investments into Oliver's father's company, helping it through 2 financial crises, about 150 million yen. Third, and largest, she's been using that money, together with several senior Lu Group figures, to secretly buy circulating shares of Lu Group, attempting to dilute your holdings and seize full control. So not only was she keeping another man, she'd used my money to plot against me. How many shares does she hold now? I asked coldly. Including her original shares and acquisitions over the past 2 years, she holds 34% in total. That's still far from your 51%. A cold smile touched my lips. Zoe, do 2 things for me. First, in the name of Universe Capital, file an application with Lu Group's board to convene an extraordinary shareholders meeting with the agenda to dismiss CEO Lydia. Second, anonymously send all evidence of Lydia's embezzlement and insider dealings to the economic crimes investigators and major financial media. I intended to strip her of everything, reputation, power, and wealth. Zoe moved fast. By 3 in the afternoon, Lu Group's official website had posted the notice for an extraordinary shareholders meeting, and the anonymous expose hit like a bomb, stirring a huge scandal across the business world. Lydia was completely overwhelmed. At dusk she finally tracked me down at the hotel. Justin, get out here. I know it was you. You lunatic. What are you trying to do? I opened the door slowly and looked at her at leisure. In just 1 day this once imposing woman had become a ragged mess, eyes bloodshot. Her blazer crumpled. President Lu, what brings you here? I asked. Seeing me unharmed only made her angrier. She grabbed my wrist. Do you know what you've destroyed? She hissed. Come with me to the police station. I've arranged the media. You'll clear up all this embezzlement as a forgery. I've already lined up the courts. You just sit inside for a few years and it'll all be settled. I yanked my arm away and met her with a frosty stare. You're delusional. She seemed taken aback by my look and froze. I slapped down a document I'd prepared onto her chest. This is the property settlement agreement. I've signed it. You leave with nothing. Her eyes fell to the page, then shot back to me as if she'd heard the most absurd joke. What right do you have to make me walk away with nothing? Don't forget, you eat and live on me. Without me you're nothing. I let out a short laugh and slid another document toward her. It was the shareholders meeting notice. In the organizer field, My name was printed plainly in black and white. Justin. Lydia's pupils constricted. She stared at the name, her color draining until her face was ashen. Universe Capital's largest shareholder, Justin, she whispered, shock and disbelief filling her eyes. No way, how could you be? Her lips moved but no words came out. You never really knew me, did you? I sneered. 3 years ago, at a charity gala, I'd fallen for her at first sight. She was Lou Group's young, accomplished CEO, beautiful, elegant, fiercely ambitious. To win a pure love, I hid that I was the sole heir of Universe Capital. Approaching her as an ordinary art school grad, I courted her passionately, tender and attentive, devoted in every way. I believed I'd found true love, so I married her without hesitation, gladly cooking and caring for her, content to be the man behind the scenes. I'd been foolish to think she loved Justin, the person, and not the identity and wealth attached to him. Now it seemed she had loved merely a compliant servant who satisfied her self-interest. This can't be. Lydia grabbed my shoulder and shook me hard. I frowned and without warning kicked her calf. She yelped and released her grip. I stepped back and looked at her coldly. Lydia, do you still think I'm joking? Tell me, who has the power to make Lou Group's stock crash in a single day? Who can precisely freeze all your private accounts? Who has secured the evidence of your embezzlement and your collusion to seize company assets? Every word I spoke landed like a hammer, smashing hard against her heart. The last trace of color drained from her face. She finally realized I'd told the truth. The man she'd despised for his background, publicly humiliated. The husband she thought was nothing but a dependent son-in-law, was in fact the legendary, low-profile chairman of Universe Capital, owner of a vast financial empire. That realization would crush her more completely than the company's impending collapse ever could. She staggered back 2 steps and slumped against the wall, her eyes hollow. Why didn't you tell me sooner? She whispered. To tell you so you could more easily use my money to keep your lover, to prop up his family's business, and to scheme how to push me out. I cut in coldly. I stepped up to her and announced, freezingly calm, Lydia, we're finished. Then I turned and left. No pounding on the door. No roaring voice followed me this time. The extraordinary shareholders meeting proceeded as planned. I sat in the seat that once belonged to Lydia. Zoe sat at my side. Lydia appeared too, a puppet hollowed of spirit, forced to the back row, her gaze glued to me, full of regret and fury. The meeting was straightforward. Zoe, as my proxy, laid out to the board and shareholders irrefutable evidence of Lydia's self-enrichment, abuse of power, and actions that harmed the company during her tenure. The proof was overwhelming. Those directors who had once fawned over her now turned their barrels and attacked. Lydia, you've disappointed us deeply. You betrayed the company from the inside. You've shamed the Lou name. The vote to remove the CEO passed unanimously. Lydia was stripped of all her positions on the spot, with legal action to follow. Just as the meeting was about to adjourn, the conference room doors were flung open. Oliver burst in, disheveled and tearful, and hurled himself at Lydia. Lydia, our family's ruined. Dad's been arrested. You have to help. A stunned silence rippled through the room. Lydia looked at him, her eyes filled with tangled emotions. Yet she said nothing. When she didn't respond, Oliver turned his fury on me. You heartless monster. You ruined Lydia. You ruined everything. I'll kill you. He lunged toward me like a madman, but before he got close, 2 towering bodyguards blocked his path. I sat calmly, watching his hysterical display, finding it nothing but pathetic and absurd. Mr. Sun, I said coldly, you chose your own path. The moment you shamelessly spent money that wasn't yours and enjoyed an illusion of glory, you should have known this day would come. I paused, letting my gaze sweep over him and Lydia. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, Lydia's investment in your family's company came from embezzled corporate funds. As of now, I'm demanding full repayment, with interest. If she can't, I leaned forward slightly, voice low but sharp as a blade, then she'll have to mortgage every property under her name, and her parents'. Lydia's head jerked up, her bloodshot eyes widened with despair. Oliver collapsed onto the floor, his face pale as death. I stood, straightened my jacket, and left the conference room beside Zoe under the respectful, fearful gazes of the board members. Behind me came Oliver's desperate, broken sobs echoing down the hall. Everything unraveled faster than I'd expected. Lydia was convicted on multiple charges: embezzlement, insider trading, abuse of authority, and sentenced to 10 years in prison. The Lou family, to repay their colossal debt to me, sold every piece of property they owned, falling from the heights of wealth to utter ruin overnight. Lydia's mother, unable to bear the shock, suffered a stroke and was hospitalized. As for Oliver, stripped of his family fortune and crushed by debt, he disappeared into silence. Rumor had it his ending was miserable. Zoe told me all this. I felt nothing. Good and evil repay their own debts. The wheel of cause and effect never fails. They were merely paying the price for their greed and stupidity. I resumed control of Universe Capital, restructuring and absorbing Lou Group into our corporate system. I cut away all its failing assets, rebuilt its foundations, and restored order. Life became busier than ever, endless meetings, mountains of reports, countless decisions, but my heart was finally steady, clear, and free. I was no longer the insecure, neglected husband named Justin. I was the chairman of Universe Capital, the master of my own destiny. A month later, after settling all urgent affairs, I finally gave myself permission to rest. I rebooked the plane ticket to Paris. The morning I departed, the sky was bright and clear. Zoe personally drove me to the airport. Chairman, the Paris branch team is fully prepared. If you need anything there, you can contact them at any time, she said with her usual precision. I smiled faintly and shook my head. Zoe, I'm going on vacation, not on an inspection tour. You don't need to be so tense. She adjusted her gold-rimmed glasses, a rare flicker of unease in her expression. Have a pleasant trip, Chairman. I nodded, pulled my suitcase, and walked toward the security gate. Just as I was about to step into the checkpoint, a rough, weary voice called out behind me. Justin. My footsteps faltered, but I didn't turn around. It was Lydia's father. He looked 20 years older than before, hair gray, back bent, the pride and confidence of a once successful businessman long gone. Justin, he said hoarsely, his voice trembling, we wronged you. It's all our fault. We were blind and arrogant. Could you visit Lydia? She's being transferred to prison next week. She keeps saying your name, says she wants to see you one last time. I stood still in silence. No words, no movement. The airport's loudspeaker announced final boarding. I took a deep breath, grasped the handle of my suitcase, and walked forward without looking back. Lydia, the moment you tore that marriage certificate apart, everything between us ended. To meet again would be worse than never meeting at all. Paris sunlight was warm but never harsh. I didn't stay at the company's arranged hotel. Instead, I rented a small apartment with a terrace overlooking the Seine. By day, I became just another tourist, watching the Mona Lisa's mysterious smile at the Louvre, feeding pigeons beneath the Eiffel Tower, sipping quiet coffee on the Champs-Élysées. At night, I'd sit on the terrace with a bottle of red wine, watching the boats glide along the river and the golden lights reflecting on the water. I let my thoughts drift, feeling the weight of years lift away. 3 years of marriage, it felt like a long, suffocating dream. Now that I'd awakened, I realized the world was vast, and solitude could be peaceful, even beautiful. That day, while admiring Van Gogh's Starry Night at the Musée d'Orsay, my phone suddenly rang, an unfamiliar local number. I hesitated but answered. Justin. The voice on the other end froze me in place. It was Lydia. I almost hung up, but she spoke quickly, her tone desperate. Don't hang up, please, just 3 minutes. I beg you, 3 minutes. Her voice was hoarse and trembling, soaked in guilt and sorrow. I frowned. I didn't know how she had found my number, or how she was calling from prison. I begged my father for days. She continued weakly. He pulled every string to let me make this call. Justin. I'm sorry. I'm really, truly sorry. On the other end of the line, Lydia was crying uncontrollably. I know it's too late now. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I just wanted to tell you, I was wrong. So wrong. I lost my mind. I lost the best person in the world. For 3 years, you treated me so well, and I let my pride and vanity blind me. I didn't dare make our marriage public. I let my mother push Oliver onto me. I was disgusting. I always loved you, Justin. I swear I did. It just took me too long to understand. If there's another life, Lydia. My tone was cold. Final. There's no if, and there's no next life. Whatever we were, it's over. I ended the call and immediately blocked the number. Standing before Starry Night, I looked at the swirling, burning cosmos Van Gogh had left behind, and my heart was utterly still. Her love had come too cheap, and far too late. Justin, the man once chained by love, was gone. Paris healed me. Half a month there, and I felt reborn. The day before I returned home, Zoe suddenly appeared at my apartment door. I blinked, surprised. She wore a vivid, elegant dress, so unlike her usual tailored suits, strikingly beautiful, with a warmth I'd never seen in her before. Chairman, she began, adjusting her glasses a little awkwardly. There's an urgent project from headquarters. I need your signature. I raised an eyebrow, amused, glancing at her empty hands. Oh, what project is so urgent it needed you to fly here personally? A faint blush rose on her cheeks. From behind her back, she revealed a huge bouquet of champagne-colored roses, blooming perfectly. This project, she said, voice soft but steady, is called Pursuing Mr. Justin. I froze for a second. Zoe looked straight at me, her eyes full of a sincerity and fire I'd never seen before. Justin, I've known you for 5 years. I watched you go from a clueless young heir trailing behind the old chairman, to a man who gave up everything for love, and then watched you rise again, stronger than ever. I've seen you love, fall, and shatter. I've seen you break free from your past and rise from the ashes. Back then, I could only be your subordinate, hiding everything I felt. But now, you're free. She stepped closer, holding the roses out to me, summoning all the courage in her heart. Justin, I like you. Not as your assistant admiring her boss, but as a woman who loves a man. Will you give me a chance? For a moment, I just looked at her, at the nervous hope in her eyes, the trembling petals between her fingers, and suddenly, I smiled. Something deep inside me, long frozen, quietly began to thaw. I didn't answer. Instead, I took the flowers and breathed in their fragrance. They smell wonderful, I said, glancing up with a teasing grin. But, Assistant Zoe, pursuing me won't be easy. Have you prepared your project proposal? Zoe blinked. Then comprehension dawned. Her lips curved into a bright, radiant smile. Prepared, she said solemnly, nodding once. I've been preparing it for 5 years. On the flight home, Zoe and I sat side by side. We talked about everything, from the company's future direction to our personal hobbies and quirks. I realized, for the first time, that beneath her usual composure and quiet diligence, Zoe had an unexpectedly fascinating soul. She knew photography, loved diving, and was an excellent cook. All things Lydia had never cared about. Lydia only ever cared whether my family background could benefit her, whether my obedience could feed her vanity. But Zoe, she saw me, the whole me, the real Justin. When the plane landed, I turned on my phone. A single unread message awaited me. It was from Lydia's father. Justin, Lydia, she took her own life in prison. She left a note for you. For a brief moment, my heart trembled. Then it grew still again. I replied with 4 words. My condolences to you. Then I deleted the message and switched off my phone. Outside the terminal, sunlight spilled across the pavement. Zoe opened the car door for me with a smile. Chairman, where to next? Back to the company, or? I slid into the seat, looked into her bright eyes, and smiled faintly. To your place. She blinked, startled. Huh? Didn't you say you'd cook something special, as the kickoff for your pursuit project? Her face turned crimson in an instant. She nodded, flustered but smiling, and started the car. Outside the window, the city blurred past in streaks of light and motion. I turned to watch it, feeling the pulse of a new beginning, the skyline alive, the air fresh with promise. Beside me sat a woman who saw me not for what I could offer, but for who I was. The chapter belonging to Lydia had ended for good, and mine, Justin's new life, had just begun. This time, I would live for myself, brilliant, unshackled, and unstoppable.